Curators, welcome back for episode 19 of the Yarn Curator podcast. My name is Naomi. Welcome to my channel where I like to talk about knitting, spinning, and all things fibery and crafty. For all of you who are new viewers and just checking out this channel for the first time, welcome. I hope you enjoy today's episode and consider hitting that subscribe button down below if you like what you see and hear. If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. And most hearty welcome back to you. Thank you for continuing to come back to this space. I hope everyone is doing well. If you're interested in following me on social media, I am the Yarn Curator on Instagram, and if you want to be friends on Ravelry, I am House of Cardigans over there as well. Yeah, I hope everyone is doing well and staying healthy in these times. I know things are starting to change from the state of kind of limbo that we've been in over the last month. However, seems like some states are taking steps to ease and reopen. I know we are here in Florida. At the museum that I work at, we have really developed a firm re-entry plan and reopening plan for the public. So my husband, who also works in local government alongside me, his employer, or the branch that he works within, they're getting ready to open back up to the public this week with really limited service that they're able to offer. So yeah, times are changing. I don't know if they're for the best, the worst. I mean, everything's so uncertain that it's kind of, you have to wait and see what happens. With that being said, hopefully as people go back to work a little bit more and maybe you have a bit more disposable income, I do just have to put a little plea out there for my fellow museum professionals. I hope you guys, if you have a little extra income, will consider supporting your local nonprofits and cultural and arts institutions. I know what we offer to society is nice, and I know it adds value and that we provide a valuable service to the public in terms of education, tourism, and cultural enrichment. And I just want to let everyone know, if you have a little bit of extra money, please consider donating a little to your local museum or not cultural arts. In my case, I will speak specifically to history museums because we are often the last to be funded out of cultural organizations. So if you have a little extra disposable income, please consider donating to your local museum. I know several of my colleagues across the field have already been laid off, taken pay reductions, and there are probably going to be a staggering number of small local museums that never open their doors again because we will not be able to financially recover from this. So that's my spiel over. So if you haven't guessed and you're a new viewer, I am a curator at a local history museum here in Florida where I live with my husband, hence the name of the podcast. So that's my little Save the Arts rant over, and we can move into the regular content of the episode. I have one more thing to hit on administration, and that is that I am still doing a little informal make-along called Knit a Coworker. In my instance, I tried to crochet a coworker, but I will get to that in a second. And by a second, I mean like 20 minutes. So starting off at the top of the episode, you guys, I do have two finished objects today. The first is my Whitmoor sweater. I did do a standalone video on this sweater, and if you're interested in hearing me wax poetic for about 10 minutes about this project, please go check that out. I'll link it up above as well as down below. However, for those of you who haven't watched that, just the quick and dirty rundown, this is the Whitmoor. It's a pattern by Amy Lowden, who is also Little Tailoress. I knit mine out of One Skein Felicity Yarn Studio, which is my sister Zoe's hand-dyed yarn company, held with one strand length Mohair Luxe. And for the fingering weight yarn, it was in the Aquamarine colorway, and for the Mohair, it was in the Robin's Egg blue color. So yeah, I knit this on size 5 needles for the body and size 3s for the collar, cuffs, ribbing, all that good stuff. I do need to weave in the ends on my sleeves, but otherwise this is done. I absolutely love what blocking did to this sweater. Everything really relaxed. It has a beautiful drape when I wear it, and I think it looks really good with a pair of jeans. I'm really excited to have this off my needle. Now I just need for it to get cold in Florida so I can wear it like 3 days out of the year and maybe 3 days out of next year. I do have to say I had a trip planned for this fall that may or may not still happen. This may or may not be a sweater for that trip, should that still happen. So yeah, Zoe kind of hinted and teased at it that we were both working on special sweaters for a certain event that happens every October. Which if it does happen, great, I'll be there. If it doesn't, it's okay, I understand. I do have to say this, for this pattern, I used 3 skeins of the fingering weight yarn and about a little over 7 balls of the Mohair. I do have just about a full skein of the Mohair left over as well as the fingering weight yarn. So I'm thinking I'm gonna hold them together and make a hat. That's the game plan in my head. We'll see if that happens. I don't know, I've been all about lately, like if I finish a project and I have a partial skein, I kind of want to cast it on something immediately out of the rest of that partial skein, because you guys can't see below me, but underneath the china cabinet is 3 plastic bins full of scrap yarn, and I'll probably make a scrappy blanket out of them. However, I do not have the greatest track record of actually finishing blankets, which is why I haven't cast it on. And I'm like, nah, maybe a scrappy shawl or a scrappy sweater. So I need to go in there and just color code. And I mean, they're already kind of already are color coded, but do it a little bit more, maybe put some fades together and get cracking on those things. But yes, I'm very pleased to be finished with this. And like I said, if you want to hear a more detailed rundown about this sweater, go check out that video. I don't want to duplicate or be too repetitive for those who already watched that video. My second finished object, you might have noticed, is on my head. This is my Algae hat. It is a pattern by Amalie Designs. I knit the ribbing out of size 2 needles. The body is knit on size 3 needles. And as I mentioned before, in terms of kind of wanting to use a skein after finishing it with another project, you'll see in a second, this green color is South Down Yarns, and it's what I'm using in my Forest Park cardigan, which is a sweater I'm making for my husband. And then the lavender color is more Felicity Yarn Studio. This is her non-superwash base, and it is a one-of-a-kind colorway that I dyed while we were all together in March. So it's this beautiful lavender color that you can see there. It's got a little bit of a gray undertone, so I really like that. And yeah, both of these yarns are non-superwash, so they lent themselves to the color work really well. I'll turn so you can see a little bit of a side profile as well as what the back of the hat looks like. So give you the full experience. This was a really quick, enjoyable project. It is written out, I believe it's only charted. I believe you have to be able to read the charts to do the color work pattern. So these are the 2 yarns I used to knit that pattern, and I don't know if you can see, but the green, the South Down Yarns, is a bit plumper than this fingering weight yarn. So while I was knitting it, I was really worried that this was almost too heavy of a fingering weight to be used with this pattern, and that I was going to knit up closer to a DK. However, once I blocked the project, I mean, everything grew and stretched out, and it lays beautifully right now. I'll pull this off and risk hat hair, but as you can see, show you the floats on the inside. So that is what the floats look like. No, I think the longest jog between one color to the next might have been 6 or 7 stitches. So I did catch my floats every 3rd or 4th stitch when carrying the yarns in the back. If it was 5 or less, I didn't bother. But yeah, I'm really pleased with the way that this turned out. So as you can see, it has that beautiful undulating leaf design, and I think the kind of seaweedy color in here looks really cool. So yeah, normally I'm not much of a person to wear hats. The main reason for that is my hair is kind of like always wearing a hat. It's so thick and heavy and insulating on its own. When I wear a hat, it's almost like overkill. Even when I lived out in Colorado, I would always get frustrated wearing hats because I usually, to wear a hat, have to braid my hair. Like I can't throw my hair in a ponytail or a low bun. It just looks weird. And for those of you who also have curly hair, you'll totally understand this, but like once you like mush it down or put something on it or move it in any way, shape, or form, the hair just sticks you the middle finger and is like, no, I'm not gonna look good anymore. So you don't really wanna like touch it or put anything on it. And so I never really wear hats for that reason. I'm digressing about my own personal. Zoe says I have a complex about my hair. She's probably right, but it's always been, I've always referred to it as the beast. So conquering the beast has always been a challenge. But anyways, that is why I don't often wear hats. But I think this one's really cute. And yeah, I'm really excited about it. I may or may not keep it. I may throw it in a gift pile because you just heard my 3-minute diatribe about hair and hats. So one final note, when I did block this, I threw just a little squirt of hair conditioner into the water and worked that into the yarns, which helped soften them up, relax a little bit. They're a little less scratchy. Not that that's an issue since they're on my head and not next to my skin. So really, I really enjoyed making this hat. It was a really fun knit. I probably could have knocked it out in a couple days, but I had goals between my last podcast and this one, and I met all of them. So yeah, I wanted to finish Whitmoor, and I wanted to finish the body on my Forest Park cardigan. So I did both of those things. I got some rows done on Poet as well as a few other things. So the fact that I was able to finish a sweater, a hat, meet my Forest Park goal, and all the other stuff is awesome. So next up is whips or works in progress. The first whip I want to talk to you guys about today is my Forest Park cardigan. So this is a cardigan I'm knitting for my husband, who is not making his semi-regular appearance now, but I am knitting this out of John Arbon on their Viola DK base, as well as the same green, this South Down yarns for the contrast color on those happy little trees. So when I last spoke to you guys, I was about halfway through the body, and yeah, I finished the body, bound off. I used Lori's Twisty Bind Off for the hem. I think that is quickly becoming my favorite go-to stretchy bind off because, I mean, as you can see, lots of stretch there, but you don't get the flare like you get with Jenny's or the lace bind off, which I really like for garments. I'll hold that up so you guys can see it. So that is what that bind off looks like. And I think what I'm going to do next is it does have pockets. I think I want to go ahead and pick these stitches up for the pockets, do those as well as the button band, and then pick up the sleeves. I originally bought 5 balls of this yarn to make a sweater for myself, and then he requested it, and it was the only kind of gender neutral color I have in, well, I should say had in my stash at the time. I've since acquired a few more kind of basic colors. However, it was one of the few colors in my stash that I thought would work. I always knew I would be playing Yarn Chicken with the 5 skeins of the John Arbon. So what I did is I went ahead and ordered a 6th skein online while they're doing half off on international shipping. That has arrived. It looks just a smidge lighter than this yarn, which is not surprising considering they were milled nearly 2 years apart from each other. So what I want to do is get kind of the staple accents done in the yarn that I have right now. That's all from the same batch. What I'm going to do is when I pick up the sleeves, I plan on alternating skeins between the new and the old yarn for those so it'll blend in. I don't think it'll be noticeable. It's just barely lighter than the other 2 skeins. So yeah, here's the old yarn that I ordered and here's the new skein from the mill. And I mean, they're pretty spot on for being about the same. I think this one's just a smidge lighter than this. And so I plan on alternating skeins and I think that'll trick the eye and blend it so it's not noticeable. So speaking of goals, I would love to have this finished by the next podcast. I do have to say this is a really enjoyable knit. It's practically knitting itself. It's like I do a couple rows and I'm always amazed at how much it's grown between having started and finished a row, even considering all the purling that's involved. Strangely, I've enjoyed the process of knitting and purling. I haven't found it too tedious yet, which is great. Normally I'm like, ooh, purling, but I don't know. There's something about this knit and the mental state that I'm in right now that it's like I still have to think a little, but not really because everything that I'm doing is also second nature, but it's still, you know, a little bit more dynamic and engaging than just plain stockinette in the round, which is what I'm quickly approaching for these sleeves. Anyways, all that to say is I'm really enjoying this pattern. I'm really enjoying this knit. And yeah, I think it's going to be a really cozy knit when it's finished. I might have to make a second one for myself so I don't steal his. Yeah, I need to make a second one for me. Maybe in the same color scheme. Or maybe I'll just steal his, we'll see. The next project in my current rotation is one you guys will be familiar with. It's another light blue turquoise lace sweater. This is my Poet. It is a pattern by Sari Norland, and I am knitting this out of Biches Busches in their turquoise colorway. It's this lovely blue-green. This is a color I always gravitate towards. It's one of my favorite colors in yarn form. Ooh, now I'm looking at these two together. Something left over might need to happen out of these two together. So here is my Poet. So the last time it made an appearance on the podcast, it was about an inch or so less than it is now. So I have since divided off the sleeves since the last time I podcasted and have worked one full repeat of the chart. I'll show off this side because it has the short rows, so it's a little bit longer and you can see a little bit more of what that looks like. So it has this lovely, I think it's called like an artichoke pattern is what these are called. It's supposed to mimic an artichoke. I could be making that up. So yeah, that is what that looks like. I have merged my charts and it's just a matter of repeating the chart, which is like 64 rows, 3 or 4 times now, and I'm about halfway through one full repeat. For those of you who might be working on your own Poet or consider making it in the future, here's a little helpful hint. If you're knitting the size large, because there's slightly different instructions for all the sizes, If you're knitting the size large, before you divide your sleeves, the back is knit from chart A and the front is knit from chart B. She writes in the pattern that after you divide your sleeves, you can merge your two charts. When you divide your sleeves, I believe you're on row 17 or 18 of the chart. And then not only that, one of the charts, depending on which one you choose to follow, is offset, so it starts in the middle of the other chart. So what I ended up doing was I continued to knit from chart A. I found it just an easier chart to read, mainly because in chart A, the first stitch of every repeat is a purl stitch throughout the entire chart, whereas in chart B, it alternates. So I just found that easier to keep track of, and it'll be easier for when I put it down and pick it back up, that, you know, when I'm ready to stop, I can just purl that one stitch and then set it down. Anyways, chart B is half a repeat skewed. What you end up doing, or what I did, was I moved my beginning of round underneath the sleeves back, I think 10 or 12 stitches. And I just counted out in that area where it needed to start and end to line up with the next full chart. And so I knit chart A to pattern, and then what I ended up having to do on the front, which is the chart B side, is I actually had to remove all the stitch markers I was using previously and reconfigure them so that they fell, you know, in the right grouping to line up with the charts. Now, none of that is written in the pattern, and I think just a little note could have gone a long way, because what happened was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, when I was ready to pick this up and dedicate the brain space to figuring all that out, it took me 3 or 4 hours of kind of staring, reading, staring at my knitting, and then working up the courage to make sure that was what I was supposed to do. I've mentioned this before. I don't know if that's just a difference in style between more Nordic patterns and how they're written, and there's an assumption of knowledge and skills versus kind of the spoon-fed instructions you get from more US-based designers, but I would have appreciated just a tiny teaspoon of spoon feeding with this pattern. That being said, it's smooth sailing now. It is still a pattern where I can't really engage in conversation while I work on it. I can usually get 1 or 2 rows done with my husband around, but that's about it. And then I put it down and save it for Mondays when I'm home by myself. It's slow going considering I only work on it about 3, 4, 5 hours every week. If I'm lucky, I'll work on it in a 2-week span, depending on the podcast schedule. I think it's going to be beautiful. I think the yarn's going to bloom beautifully when it's done, and yeah. So next in works in progress / groundbreaking revelations for longtime viewers, I crocheted something. What? I think this is the first time I've ever talked about crochet on this channel. I can kind of crochet. I would not call myself a crocheter. However, I understand in theory how to create stitches, and I can follow a YouTube tutorial for things like granny squares. And so anyways, as I mentioned at the start of the episode, I really, while we're all working from home and in quarantine, would like to host a Knit a Coworker Cal or Mal make along, and it can be whatever crafty discipline of your choosing. You can sew a voodoo doll of your coworker, you can weave something, knit something, crochet something, make them out of clay for all I care. It's just meant to be fun. With that being said, I have long looked at I think the Happypotamus pattern is what it's called. It's a crocheted hippopotamus. I'll insert a picture so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Anyways, it is crocheted out of these, I think they're called African flower mandalas. Is that what they're called? And so I thought this would be a great use of my scrap yarn. And so I own a total of 3 crochet hooks. They're mainly for picking up mistakes on my knitting. I think I've acquired them all secondhand for the most part. Anyways, I did not have the correct size hook for this project because it is stuffed. So all of these holes would result in batting poking through. I have since on Amazon placed a order of a full set of crochet hooks because why not? So I'm just waiting for those to arrive and then I will make progress. So for those of you who are regular crocheters and comfortable with the craft, you will laugh, but this little flower literally took me like 2 hours to do between starting and stopping the tutorial, ripping things out, a good amount of cussing under my breath, and going like, wait, what? And messed up this part a few times, messed up this part a few times. Anyways, I plan on using little bits and bobs of the aforementioned 3 bins of scraps underneath my china cabinet to create this hippopotamus. So I think the plan is, or for me, what I'm thinking right now is I'm going to go ahead and make however many of these little flowers are needed. I think it's about 44 in total, and I'm sure I'll get faster with practice. So the plan is to make 44 of these little guys, and then one of my volunteers at work gave me some of this leftover cotton yarn that she had. And so this is some vintage Bernat Gloucester Sport. It's 100% cotton. It's just an undyed white color. It is a little bit heavier than my fingering weight scraps, and I'm not sure if that's going to be an issue. You can see here I started to pick it up and I was going to finish this, and then I was like, forget about it. Maybe this will become a Christmas ornament. Yeah, so the plan is to attach everything in this white, and I think it'll be super cute when it's done. I had to have done something wrong because when I started doing the treble crochets, this kind of pop border was just disappearing. So either I did this wrong or I was doing this bit wrong. I don't know. When my hook arrives, I will commit more brain space to this. Part of me is debating being a really good sister and gifting this to my brother and sister-in-law who are expecting a baby in June or July. The other part of me wants to keep it as my house hippo. We'll see. I'm probably gonna keep it. I originally started this project with the intention of it being for me, and I have a ton of this cotton yarn. So I think I'm just gonna make something else out of the yarn for them out of this cotton, which will be perfect for a baby. Yeah, that does it for the making content of this episode. I haven't done any spinning over the last 2 weeks. I just have really been motivated to finish some of the whips on my needles. I even pulled out an old whip, and I think I'm going to try and finish that as well by the next time I sit down to film. To wrap things up, I thought I would just talk to you guys a little bit about what's going on here and in life. Just connect a little bit more with everyone. So as I said, I've been working from home for about a month and a half now, and that's been an interesting challenge. The first 2 or 3 weeks, I was absolutely loving it. I was super productive, and you might be like, Naomi, how do you curate a museum from home? You write exhibit text. So I have been treating this almost like a sabbatical. I have been getting a lot of great research in on an exhibit that I was working on prior to this, where it was actually moving really slowly because during our normal operations, my workplace is really fast paced. We get anywhere from 20 to 30,000 visitors on a month sometimes, and we're a staff of 5. And so it's usually a lot of, on days that we're open, running around, putting out fires, managing volunteers, managing intern projects, and then catching up on work on days that it might be slow, or the 2 days a week that we're closed to the public are really great office days. So this has been fantastic. I have learned more than I ever thought I would know about the history of sailing, because we have a replica 1940s boat shop on property. It houses our historic boat collection at my work, and what's really neat about that is the boats that we have are from a local boat builder. I've mentioned this in the past if you watched my Vlogmas. So this gentleman was an influential small wooden boatcraft designer who emerged to prominence in the late 1940s following World War II, in which he designed a sailboat called the Optimus Pram. It is the most successful sailboat design in history. And I'm not exaggerating that. There's been over 500,000 of them created worldwide, either out of wood or fiberglass. It's really cool that that particular iteration of the pram, there are other prams out there, was made, I think, 5 miles up the road from where I live. So that's really neat. It's been really interesting to dig into the history and narrative arc of boating and sailing for utilitarian purposes, you know, for transportation of goods and people, for economic reasons, exploration, all of that good stuff, sustenance. And following World War II, kind of the 1850s, 1860s, in a temporal arc up to about the 1960s, with the introduction of steamships technology, you really see this shift away from sailing primarily as an activity for, my husband just got home. So you see this shift from more of a practical purpose to a pleasure pursuit, particularly with the rise of the middle class and money and all of that good stuff. So that's kind of been the overarching theme, and then what we like to do, so connecting those national narratives down to the local level. So tying in the story of this boat builder, how it fits within that context, and then its impact out locally up nationally. That's how I like to approach exhibits. The other thing I really like to do is tell it from the historical people's point of views. So I have a lot of great primary source material to work from. This particular gentleman in his 70s or 80s started writing down about his life experiences, his life as a boat builder, all of that good stuff. So pulling in a lot of those quotes from him, as well as from a few other area boat builders, has been great. Now, taking all of that information and then synthesizing it into digestible text is another thing. So that's the process I'm in right now. You know, kind of on the front end, I got to dig into the research portion of things, which I absolutely love. Now I'm in the synthesis portion of things, which is a lot harder, but it's another creative pursuit, and thinking about how to present that information to people in a creative and engaging manner. So that's one of the things I've been working on from home. Another has been putting kind of some of these video skills to work. So we have 30 historic structures on site. 18 or 19 of those are physical buildings that you can enter and tour. So I have slowly been making video tours of our buildings. There's no narration. It's just walking through the homes, taking clips of all the artifacts on displays with a soundtrack overlaid. Unfortunately, I don't have time right now to do the justice of a full scripted tour, because that would take even more research and writing time. And so it's just another way. We're putting those on our Facebook to keep the public engaged. And another project dovetailing with that is we're using a free open source platform called Clio. I highly encourage you to download it. It is an app designed specifically for cultural institutions in which they can build tours of their site within this app for free. And it was created by a historian, so they get kind of the formatting and how things need to work. So anyways, my coworkers and I have been collaborating to build out a site page for our institution and creating standalone entries for all of our historic structures, putting those digital tours in and photos, some historic photographs of our houses in their original situ and all of that good stuff. So if you're wondering what your local museum professionals are doing and you're off from their home, that's a small snippet of what that looks like. So yeah, I think with that though, you guys, I am going to wrap everything up. I hope you'll join me in making a little coworker. Mr. Yarn Curator has requested a little Pokemon Anagurumi. So I'm going to try, once I get those hooks, I will try and crank that out for him as well. I've never crocheted anything in 3D though, so that'll be an experience. Yeah, so until next time, I hope you guys enjoy your making, whatever you're working on, whatever brings you joy. And if you enjoyed today's episode, hit that thumbs up button, leave me a comment down below, and if you haven't already, hit subscribe. I think that does it for everything. Until next time, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye! I don't know if you guys can see that. I'll hold it up so you can see the pattern. I mean, look at these together. This is the name of my project bags. Hey, you're good.